I got home last night and I had a package on my doorstep, and it was from Green Chef, who are my sponsors for this series. I was absolutely blown away with what was inside. Not only did they have the step-by-step recipe cards in there, but they had all the ingredients and as fresh as you can get them. Last night, I cooked the duck in balsamic glaze, which I'd never tried before. These pre-portioned ingredients allowed me to try this new flavour completely risk-free, and I was able to eat the exact right amount of these ingredients. Not only that, but they had tender stem broccoli. How many other food boxes send tender stem broccoli? It was unbelievably delicious, and I can't recommend it enough. Their high-quality, fresh, seasonal ingredients just blew me away. And it's allowed me to eat consistently and have a routine whilst eating healthily. So get 40% off your first box and 20% off your next 3 boxes with the code GREENSTRONG. That's GREENSTRONG for 40% off your first box and 20% off your next 3 boxes. Hello and welcome to this episode of Headstrong. We're currently in season 7 of the podcast and we're well underway. My name is Louis Strong and I talk to a variety of guests in the public eye about their lives and their careers. I want to talk to them to understand a greater depth of the word headstrong and what that word uniquely means to them. But to me, it means to believe in yourself, to talk about your vulnerabilities and reinforce your self-worth. Joining me on this episode of Headstrong is actor Martins Imhangbe. I spoke to Martins just before the release of Bridgerton Season 2, which is highly anticipated. I talked to Martins about his experiences in the acting industry and what rejection is like as an actor, which I'm all too familiar with. So I really hope you find this episode inspiring and engaging. Martins, thank you very, very much for joining me on Headstrong. How are we doing?
I'm good. I'm really, really good.
Fantastic. Look, we've got a great deal to talk about. More from my end, probably. Not least of all, the world of theatre, Shakespeare. Naturally, I want to talk about Bridgerton and Season 2 and where things are going. But I want to go through things chronologically with you, if that's okay. So I want to start at the very, very beginning, which is, of course, in Nigeria, which is then followed by Greece for 5 years and then followed to moving to the UK.
Yeah.
What was that experience like moving at such a young age to various places? What did that feel like as an individual to you and a sense of belonging?
I guess I didn't really know any different, at the time you just go along with the flow. Your parents say, we're going here, and then you just go. So I think it was only until I got here to the UK and I realized that, my accent was different, and, the kids made that very clear. I had a mix between sounding a bit of Greek and a bit of Pidgin, Nigerian. So it was a whole mix. So I had to overcome that in school.
So an important question to you then was I suppose it's kind of two sides to it. What does the word identity mean to you? What does it stand for? Because I know how important heritage is to you and what being a part of the culture is to you. But what does the word identity mean?
Identity means to me what you identify with, what you connect with as an individual, what resonates with you. I don't think it's necessarily where you were born or, your family. I think it's what you sort of connect with as an individual. So it's quite a unique thing. So I don't think anyone can label that on you. I think it's whatever you sort of go, okay, this is who I am. This is who I want to be.
So it's part of identity value?
Yeah, because I think you place value in it. I think so. Whatever you kind of value, love, care, you resonate with, and it becomes part of you.
So in that childhood then that you experienced and all that you ever knew, what were the key values that you were brought up on? Because I know that you were brought up in with the church, and that
Yeah.
was very important. So what were the key values of that and for you, and maybe some of the things that have stuck with you through that?
Yes. Kindness. I think it was very important to be kind growing up and smile and be friendly and but my parents are very open in terms of they're very hospitable. They take people in and look after them, and we've had a lot of family members and friends who have passed through and stayed in our houses, and so there's always a sense of being open and taking care of others and just share kindness.
Yeah, is that, and that extends not to just family and friends, to anybody?
Yeah, just anyone, just like, in the Bible, it says, treat others how you'd like to be treated. So I think that really resonated with us as a family. Like, even though we at the time, my parents faced a lot of prejudice and racism, there was still a sense of, well, we're going to treat you still how we would like to be treated. So we're not going to retaliate with how...
Sorry about that.
That's all right. Yeah, we're not going to sort of fight fire with fire, but we're just going to sort of create the world that we want to exist in.
Yeah, for sure. So school then is a natural time for exploration and finding your own identity, something that we kind of touched on. And you talked about the fact that you got mocked at school for the way that you spoke. Is that from that very young age then that you experienced that kind of animosity from even children of that young an age? Because
kids are mean.
About 6 or 7?
Yeah. I was about 7, but yeah, kids are mean, man. But I say that with a lightness to that as well. Like, kids, we're all trying to figure out who we are and where we stand in relation to others. So I guess if something sounds unfamiliar, there's a response to that. So I guess that's just part of learning, isn't it? It's part of growing up and learning and identity, figuring out who you want to be in life. So yeah, I guess as a child, when someone's like mocking you or like you don't, it's hard to know how to respond to that or how to sort of navigate through that.
How did you respond to it?
Well, I'll tell you one story. I remember I was in, I think it was the first school I went to, and there was a girl in the class who sort of made fun of my accent. I think she brought it to the attention of the whole class, and everyone sort of laughed. And I just remember seeing a scissors. I remember it's very specific. It was like the green and yellow scissors. I think it was for the people who understand it. And I remember taking that and just cutting off a bit of her hair. And I just snipped a bit of her hair, and as she was in tears, I got in trouble for it. But I guess it was just like a retaliation to just do that. But yeah.
Standing up for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get that. Well, how did you feel? And in terms of finding yourself at school, when did you kind of go, okay, now I feel I know where my tribe is, where I'm a part of? Because school is a time for exploration, trying to be a part of this kind of group, that kind of group. When did you feel settled in what you knew you felt you stood for?
It constantly changes. It constantly evolves. I still don't feel like I know exactly. I feel like I have a response to things, and I respond to things based on emotion and based on the moment. But I think for me, to answer your question, I think it's an ongoing venture. I think the way the world is constantly shifting and I feel like I'm constantly learning about the world I'm in and who I am, and that's constantly shifting. So I guess it's important to, be like water.
Yeah,
you
sure.
know, be like water, adapt, and don't feel like you know it all, because sometimes you feel like you know everything, or you know what you know, and and you figure out that you don't. You don't really know anything. We don't really know anything. We're constantly learning. So I think being open to that is very important for me.
I like to think of life being the experience, and using the past experiences as the learning, which I think is really important. With school, then, can you remember the first piece of theatre you went to see?
That I went to see, or that I was a part of?
The one that you went to see, because where did that love start? Where did that kind of passion for theatre start and derive from?
I think it started when it started in television. Okay. Acting for me started in watching films and watching TV and movies. That's where it started. In terms of theatre, I think the first thing that I can remember seeing, I must have seen other stuff, but it was Brother Size, The Brother Size, by Terrell Alvin McCartney, and that was at the Young Vic Theatre. So I remember seeing that and seeing three black men on stage and just like expressing love, expressing pain, and just a mixture of emotions, and it wasn't just like, it wasn't stereotypical. It wasn't. It was born out of love, and I think that sort of resonated with me a lot.
Well, it's a great theatre known for bringing some great pieces of work, of course. So what was it about theatre then, or what is it about theatre that makes you want to pursue that experience in the kind of live phenomenon of the art, if that makes sense? So what is it about theatre? So, when I'm on stage, I enjoy that continuous buzz night after night of somebody else watching it for the first time. So what is it for you you enjoy about it?
I like the audience interaction. I love knowing that the audience are experiencing it for the first time. I like the idea that it's going to be different every night, even though it's rehearsed. It's slightly different. And I love the idea of collaborating. I love a group of people coming together to tell a story, and to have each other's back. On stage, when it's really worked for me is when I felt like the cast and the crew, we've all had each other's back, despite what may happen. Someone might forget a line, or the light might go out, but there's a sense of like unity. There's a sense of like, okay, we're in this together in order to tell the story. I think it's beautiful. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That real sense of community and family with a cast is really important on stage, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So talk to me about drama school then, because I'm genuinely not being rude, in the sense that when you left school, you didn't have the best grades in the world.
Yeah, I didn't. No.
So you were left in a kind of a situation, a predicament where you went, you know what, though, I'm going to fulfill this and I'm going to follow this through. And you auditioned for drama school, but it didn't go well first time around, did it?
No, it didn't. Can
you tell me about that experience? What happened that first time?
The first time I didn't get into drama school? Yeah. I think the whole concept of drama school was very new to me. I only knew about university, so I didn't really know what I was getting into. But I knew that I didn't want to do written work. I felt like I was more practical. I didn't want to be writing essays. But even at drama school, you still have to write essays, and it's still very academic. So it didn't really hit me that hard, because I didn't know what I was sort of getting myself into. But I had a teacher called Lisa Stubbs who suggested that I in the interim, instead of me like going to get like a job, she recommended that I do technical theatre. So I got into technical theatre, and that really solidified my love, because I learned about everything. I learned about behind the scenes. I learned about how, you know, a set is constructed. I learned about the lights. I learned about everything. So my appreciation for theatre was very deep rooted as a result of that. So going now, reapplying for drama schools, it just gave me another lift, because I was like, okay, now I get it, and there's a new appreciation for the craft as a whole. So I was I felt like I was in a more equipped place to be able to go, okay, cool, I'm going for it. Yeah.
I mean, you completely took the words that I was gonna say on top of that. It's the craft that goes into the theatre.
Yeah.
You don't think about the lighting technician that's moving the lanterns. You're not
Yeah,
thinking about the guy that's building the set behind, because all you're seeing is the actors on stage. But yeah, exactly. I remember when I did exactly the same as you, learning all about the technical side of it, and it gives you a whole new appreciation of theatre and stagecraft in itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is it fair to say then that you tackled that initial rejection with seizing further opportunity then to further your development and education of the trade that you wanted to be in?
Yeah, absolutely. Just continuous learning, and I guess that's always been sort of my thing. I've just always been sort of trying to go with the tide kind of thing, and just instead of just sitting down and going, oh, c'est la vie, I felt it was important for me just to keep moving.
So I have a question for you. As an actor, I'm very familiar with rejection, and that's part of the job. What's your experience with rejection? How do you cope with it and deal with it, perhaps differently from the start of your career to now? How have you matured into that, and how do you tackle it?
Oh man, it's been a roller coaster kind of thing, because I'm still sort of tackling it and dealing with it, and I guess I have to remember that. Do you know what it is? It's all about perspective, and I'm learning a lot about perspective in life, and it depends on how you want to look at things, you know, and what you decide to focus on. And these are things I tell myself, and I just say, you know, auditions are an invitation. They're an invitation to collaborate, and it's figuring out whether that collaboration will work out. It's easy to take it as a personal thing when you don't get the job, or when someone says that, okay, this isn't going to work. So you go away and you go, oh, because I'm crap, I didn't work hard enough, or I didn't. So you beat yourself up. Whereas it just means that the dynamic just didn't work. It's just not this project, you know? So I guess it's how you decide to look at it. And sometimes I get attached to things, get attached to projects, and I'd love to do it. And I think that's a good thing, because it means that I know what I like, or I know what I appreciate. And if I don't get it, I'm happy that it's being made. I'm happy that someone is doing it. And I think for me, that's important, like to sort of crush that ego thing of like, oh, it should be me. Because sometimes sometimes deep down, we know that someone else might be better suited for the role, or, you know, as much as we'd like to do it, but sometimes we have to be we just have to shift the perspective and go, it's not always to do with us. It's to do with the dynamic and whether it works, and make peace of that.
I suppose that's also just a general, really, really good perspective on life itself, because we're so self-centered in a way, because we only know our own mind. We're so inward looking, and we think that ultimately when you're walking down the street, you think everyone's looking at you, when actually they're probably thinking exactly the same.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right.
Absolutely.
When it comes to auditions in theatre and film, TV, whatever, there probably is someone better than you. It's whether the person who's casting it, or the director, the producer, thinks you're the one who's right for the role. And it's whether you look right. Everyone who's going up for the audition can most definitely act. Let's be honest.
Right. Right.
So it's whether you fit for it. And actually, that's a really good perspective in the sense that, you know what, if you do care about it, at least it is still being made. And that's something that I can then experience.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
It.
Feel it. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
So you've done a number of theatre shows and in a number of countries as well, I might add, which is quite cool. What has been your favourite theatrical experience to be a part of to date?
Oh, wow.
That I know that's a horrible question.
Wow, that's a very horrible question. Like, my God.
Or maybe then a particular moment where you went, and I'm sure this happens a lot, a particular moment where you went, this is why I do theatre. If there's anything that can stand out to you in all these productions and all the nights that you've done shows and the audiences that you've done it to.
I think I'd have to say Lion Boy. I did Lion Boy with Complicity, and that was I think that was my second job out of drama school. And I remember getting the role and thinking, whoa, I just landed like a huge role. I'm working with Complicity and playing the lead, and it felt quite overwhelming when I first got the role. And again, it's perspective. So I had to shift that perspective of like that imposter syndrome, and feeling whether or not, that if I'm capable of doing it. And I just had to sort of just dive in, just dive in straight into the deep end and see what happened. And one of the most memorable experiences was, I think it was the second preview or the first preview, where the performance, I don't know, the show clicked in place. There's that beautiful moment where it just falls in, like all the rehearsals that you've been doing, all the doubts and everything, and it just clicks in place. And I just remember having like a very emotional moment. And it was an emotional part of the show, but I think it was accumulation of everything else. And it felt like an arrival. It felt like a big moment in my life. And I just sort of like remember just surrendered to that moment. And I'll never forget it. I'll never forget that moment. It was on the tricycle. It was at the Tricycle Theatre. Yeah.
That's really, really cool. And I suppose in a similar breath then, there must be nights where perhaps an audience just doesn't click, or there's an energy that's lacking or something. How do you personally, what's your strategy for when you come off that stage and it maybe hasn't gone as well as you'd like to have gone, from maybe from a personal perspective, from a company perspective, or the audience just didn't feel right? What's your strategy to bounce back for the next night? How do you cope with it?
How do I cope? I just overthink, man. I get into my head and I just overthink so much. And but it's not good. It's not good because you will never know. You will never actually know the answer. And I think that's one thing I have to remind myself, that I'll never know the exact answer as to why it didn't click. But I go to the bar, you have a drink, you catch up with mates, you try to pick their brains. What was it tonight? Did you guys enjoy it? But yeah, I think, you'll never know. I just feel like you'll never know. So
yeah, sure.
It's one of those things. Yeah.
While we're on it, then, so what's you mentioned going to the bar, whatever, and stuff. Do you do anything yourself to kind of maintain your own well-being as well? Because you talk about perspective. How do you maintain that perspective?
I try to get early night, but it never works. I try to talk to friends and family, but it doesn't really work. I think what helps as well is if I'm, for example, like working at the Young Vic, I was able to like walk home. So it was nice to walk home or walk until I get a bus, or just go for a walk. I think it's quite a nice way for me to like decompress.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think taking a walk and in your own thoughts, having a think about it. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, but just by yourself, because sometimes it can be overwhelming if you're with other people and managing those energies. But like, if I can find a moment for myself at the end of the night or after the show, I think it's quite nice.
So kind of like a moment of self-reflection and
Yeah,
only on yourself. Yeah.
yeah,
I like that a lot.
yeah.
Now, something that I want to touch on very briefly is I know that you're a man who loves Shakespeare, or at least is well versed in it as well.
Yeah.
I've been working with children a lot recently, and a question that's often thrown around is, why do we still study Shakespeare, and what's the relevance and importance of it now? And I know that perhaps with a lot of kids, you know, the millennial children, I'll go with, they have this kind of attitude towards it. What would be your personal response to that, and the kind of importance of Shakespeare, if you think there be such a relevance?
I think the themes are timeless. The themes are still relevant to today. You know, betrayal, love, all that stuff. I think it's still very current. You know, I think the barrier is the language. The barrier is just the verse and understanding it. And I think once we get over that, I feel like it's accessible to everyone. I think anyone can find something, like, could find themselves in a Shakespeare play. You know, whether it's Romeo and Juliet, whether it's Macbeth, or, you know, we know these people. I remember seeing a production in South Korea, and there was no subtitles. I didn't know what was being said, but I felt, I knew those characters. I knew those relationships, those moments, you know, whether it's someone meeting someone for the first time and, you know, negotiating their friendship. I understood that. So I think once we get over the barrier of the language, and I think it's accessible to everyone, because it's hard, because there's a form to it. And I think that's what I struggled with at drama school, because it felt very stiff. It felt very
methodical.
Yeah, you know, like you had to stick to this verse, and if you're out of the verse, then you know it all falls apart. And I feel like these are things that, as much as people want to pay homage and be respectful, but I feel like it doesn't determine whether the audience resonate with it or not, because half the audience don't know what verse is. You know, they don't know about the dum, the dum, the dum. They're just going there to see organic relationships and moments, and, you know.
Go on then, put it to you. What's your favourite Shakespeare show?
My favourite Shakespeare show, probably, this is a hard one. It's either Hamlet or Othello.
Oh, yeah. Do you know what? I remember seeing Othello at the National Theatre with Adrian Lester. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. Awesome.
And who else was it? Rory Kinnear. Oh, that was
Rory
great.
Kinnear.
That was a good show.
Brilliant show, yeah.
Yeah, good choices. I think I'd probably go with A Midsummer Night's Dream. Just because I like a bit of chaos.
Right.
Yeah. Now
I like plays that you can never actually figure out. Do you know what I mean? I feel like no matter how many times you do Hamlet or Othello, you never really nail it.
Well, the good thing, those two shows, they can still remain very ambiguous and open to interpretation, which is, I know exactly what you're talking about. That's really good. I like that. Yeah. Now, I obviously can't conduct this podcast episode without talking about a tiny little Netflix show that happened. So let's talk about your experience with Bridgerton, but not just as an actor, but as kind of as a human, because this was a big opportunity for you as an individual. What was that transition like, first of all, from theatre to screen? As an actor, first of all. So what was that experience like? How did you have to change your game?
I didn't have to change my game. I sort of just done it. When I say just done it, I felt like I tried not to think about it too much. I felt like the moment I started to think about it, it became overwhelming. So I had to sort of just focus on, okay, what am I here to do? You know, who am I playing? What's this character? So I just done a lot of research. I got the books on Bill Richmond, who my character is based on, and I just learned about him. And the character's been on a journey because initially he was meant to be American. And when I auditioned, it was in an American accent. So there was this whole journey of discovering who Will Mondrich in Bridgerton is going to be. So I just focused on that and understanding that for myself in order for me to be able to go, okay, here I am. Because if I started to think about, okay, screen and I feel like it would have just consumed me a bit, you know, and I wouldn't have been as relaxed.
I get that. The kind of overwhelming nature of the what it was, I guess.
Yeah, what it was, like knowing that I'm working with Shondaland, knowing that it's Netflix, and knowing that it's a role that's developing into something. You know, I felt like the moment I started to do that whole imposter syndrome thing, it just becomes chaotic. I just can't think. So I have to sort of just layer it, just do bit by bit, just, you know, get the scripts, read them, understand them, and just take my time, you know.
So when you got that through, because it was a self-tape, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a self-tape, yeah.
And you did the self-tape, and you did it in an American accent, did you?
Did it in an American accent.
So you got cast as an American boxer first off, then.
Yeah. And, as an American boxer, because Bill Richmond was American.
Yeah.
But the thing is that at the time, the American accent is not what it is today. You know, because of the whole slave trade and everything. So it would come from his accent would have had various twangs to it. And also it would have had to go. There would have had to be a lot of, you know, backstory as to how he came to be in London, and you just felt like there was a lot of stuff to unpick with that.
I mean, there's so much I can talk about with the role and the rich. Kind of the history of what the role stands for, as you talk about doing your research on the actual individual that existed, that influenced the character in the show. But talking about kind of you and yourself, how did you prep for it, like physically as well? Because that's demanding in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, I've always like wanted to, you know, get a personal trainer for a role and get in shape and all that stuff. So when it came about, I was like, okay, I'm playing a boxer, so therefore, surely that I'll be able to have access to a personal trainer. So I asked my agent, and they got in touch with Netflix. Netflix was like, of course, and they sourced me a few personal trainers in my area, which was great. So I had a meeting with a guy called Kung Hua at Commando Temple. And it just seemed like a nice fit. So decided to go with him, and then we began training for the role, and specialized in boxing, calisthenics, and so it's funny because I was training over the course of filming. Yeah. So my body and everything was changing as I was filming the episodes. So how I was in episode 8 would be different to how I was in episode, I think my first appearance, episode 2, I think.
Yeah.
So I find that sort of that journey interesting, because usually some actors will train prior to day one of filming. Yeah. Whereas mine was a little bit prior, but during as well.
Can you remember your first day on set?
Yes.
Can you remember which scene it was?
Yeah, it was the duel scene. So it was me, Reggae, Johnny Bailey, Luke Thompson, and Luke Newton, and Phoebe. There's quite a few people there actually, but it was the duel scene. I don't even remember the duel. Yeah. So it was that scene, which is nice because I didn't have any lines in that. So it was nice to be able to be on set, no pressure. Just see what it's like, and just, you know,
dip your toe in the water, shall we say?
Yeah, exactly.
So when you first had, I don't know how far through filming it was, but when you first had the one-on-one scene in the boxing ring, for example, what was that experience like with the leading man of the show? Who broke the ice? How'd that go?
Well, Reggae is a lovely man, so he sort of introduced himself, and we have a lot of mutual friends, so we just vibed. We completely just clicked and vibed, and and it was nice because there was no ego, there was no sort of, it felt like we presented to each other an open book. So we were like, okay, here I am, here you are. Let's make the best of this, you know. Let's collaborate, and that's all it was. We would check in on each other, and you know, ask each other questions about scenes and ideas that we had. We would call each other up, texting. Like, it just felt very collaborative. So it was nice. It didn't feel like there was a rank or anything like that, you know. Obviously there is on paper, but, on set it was just like, we're just friends.
Just bounce off each other as well, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really, really cool. Now, so would it be fair enough to say then maybe during Bridgerton season 2 filming, we could just organise like a fight between you two for the next James Bond?
That is such a funny conversation. I love the whole James Bond thing of like who's going to be and stuff. And then
I know, literally. Oh God. I know. Yeah. I'm not even going to touch on it anymore. So is the
he'll be great though.
He would be awesome. I know he would.
Yeah, he'd be awesome.
He'd bring a certain suaveness to the role, which would be almost effortless as well.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
I can see it happening. Fingers crossed. Maybe you know something that I don't.
Maybe I do. Maybe I don't.
So, is the bromance as real off screen then as well? So have you spoken to him recently?
Yeah. We text, but rarely. But we do sort of like, the friendship is still there. You know,
that's strong.
Yeah.
That's
last time we were together, we were at the GQ Awards.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah.
When is season 2 filming?
Oh, it's already wrapped.
You've wrapped it already?
Yeah, we've wrapped.
What's release date then?
I can't say, and that's because I don't know.
You don't know either. Okay, are you happy?
Early next year, I guess.
You're happy and pleased with how it went?
I am. I'm happy. About the direction.
That's good.
And why I say that is because you get to see me in a new light. In an independent storyline, which is nice, you know.
Well, there was opportunity for that when it finished in season 1, wasn't there? And it could have gone several ways, I suppose. That's good that you're pleased with it.
Yeah, I am, and I feel like it's sort of like a long-term thing as well. Like it's You said slow burner, but like it feels nice, feels good.
We'll put it this way, there may well be further room to grow into the character.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love
longevity.
That. Exactly. Yeah. So looking further on from this tiny little show that Netflix produced, what other opportunities have come your way? Are you excited about the future? What can we look for in 2022 other than just this?
I am. You know what? I've been doing quite a lot of varied work. So I've been doing a bit of radio, some voiceovers. I've been doing a few things on that front. In terms of other major projects, I can't speak on any of that. But next year feels very exciting. It feels like.
But doors have opened.
Absolutely, I'd say so. Yeah.
Well, that's incredibly exciting. That's really, really
cool. Yeah.
So,
thank you.
As we get towards the end of this, I want to ask you a question I ask every guest that comes on. What does the word headstrong mean to you?
Headstrong for me would be committing to an idea of something you have in your head, you know, and committing to it and believing in it and going for it, really.
Lovely. Martins, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Likewise.
And have a lovely rest of the festive period.
Thank you.
And I wish you every success in 2022.
Yes. You too, man. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much to Martins for joining me on this episode of Headstrong. It was great to sit down and talk about one of the biggest TV shows from last year and the hotly anticipated show of this year, out soon. So I hope that you go and catch the show. If you enjoyed the episode, go share it with your friends, share it with your family, and indeed leave a rating and a review and subscribe so you can get all the episodes of Headstrong that are coming. Until next week then, where I have another guest to chat about their life and their career, but notably what Headstrong means to them.